Good evening, Amit.
As everybody continues to join us, let me first start off by welcoming each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Digital Dialogues brought to you by Broadband India Forum in association with our event partners, Bharat Exhibitions. On this occasion of World Telecommunications and Information Society Day 2021, and with the theme Accelerating Digital Transformation in Challenging Times, we bring to you a power-packed array of speakers with immense presence and experience in this sector. But before we proceed to the formal events, let me with great pride also announce that in our drive to promote accessibility in the digital communications world, we at the Broadband India Forum had initially made our website completely accessible and thereby benefiting persons with disabilities. Henceforth, we intend to take the next step forward by introducing sign language interpreters for all our webinars and events. Thus, it gives me great pleasure to welcome today Dr. Renuka Rameshan, President of the Association of Sign Language Interpreters, appropriately shortly known as ASLI, and her colleague, Mr. Saurabh Roy Chowdhury, to do the interpretation work for today's important event. Dr. Renuka Rameshan holds a PhD in social work and is a senior sign language interpreter, trainer, with an experience of 20 years in the field. Currently, she is also an executive member of ISLRTC, which is the Indian Sign Language Research and Training Center. Accompanying her is Mr. Saurabh Roy Chowdhury, who is a member of the Association of Sign Language Interpreters and a freelance sign language interpreter in his own right. He has done his master's in extension and development studies and is proficient in English, Hindi, Bangla, Indian Sign Language, and American Sign Language. And now to a few housekeeping announcements. I would request all participants to please mute themselves. There is a chat box on the top right-hand side in case any questions need answers, and a raise your hand button on the bottom lower bar to indicate that you wish to have the floor. The moderator will then determine the opportunity to invite you to speak. Keeping your camera on is a matter of personal choice and convenience, except when speaking. However, in the event of a loss of bandwidth, my experience has been that switching off the camera tends to help. This event is being recorded, and the link will be shared with all participants to revisit and share with your friends should you wish to. Finally, for those who wish to have the help of the sign language interpreters exclusively, they may pin their screens to ensure that the interpreters remain in the central focus. I trust you're all familiar with how to pin and unpin the screen. There is also the facility of closed captions that may be enabled from the link in the lower bar. With those details complete, it is now my privilege to welcome Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, President of the Broadband India Forum, for his welcome and theme introduction. To most of us, TV, as he is better known, needs no introduction. An esteemed industry veteran, TV has been part of the mobile telephony sector in India since its very inception. As the first CEO of Sterling Cellular Delhi, and having established and led COAI for over 12 years. He is also Honorary Fellow of the IET London and Global Advisory Member of the IET Future Tech Panel. Over to you, TV. TV, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajat.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening as the case may be, ladies and gentlemen. Chief guest, Dr. Harlan Zhao, Secretary General of ITU. Special guests of honor and esteemed panelists, particularly Mr. K. Ramchand, who is also a de facto chief guest of the day. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to extend a hearty welcome and warm felicitations to all of you on this occasion, which is the World Telecommunications and Information Society Day 2021, the 156th anniversary, 156th anniversary of International Telecoms Union, Geneva, or ITU as we call it. The theme this year, as you all would be aware, is accelerating digital transformation in these challenging times. The importance of digital connectivity and services cannot be overstated in any manner whatsoever. In modern day and age, digital connectivity is as important as clothing, food, and shelter, or as we call it in India, roti, kapda, or makan. In fact, oftentimes, connectivity becomes even more important than the other three essentials. I'm reminded in this context of what several of you might have heard just a few years ago when smartphones came on and were very expensive. In China, I have seen it with my own eyes at the time. In China in those days, youngsters, young workers and students would forego lunch for several days in order to save money to buy a smartphone, to give them connectivity. So that's the importance of digital connectivity, which people have been seeing. The delivery of digital services today automatically means delivery of high quality, high speed broadband. As you all know, India kickstarted our mobile broadband journey in end of 2016 with the dramatic introduction of 4G LTE mobile broadband. Until that time, India was nearly at the bottom of the global rankings and broadband penetration. But it moved up significantly in the last 4-5 years and has come up significantly by 20-30 ranks or more. Today, it has got over 750 million broadband customers just in mobile broadband. And over the last 5 years, data has multiplied not a few times, but 17-fold, 17-fold times, which is simply stupendous. That has been the growth thanks to broadband in India. Growth has been fueled also by the COVID pandemic over the last 1.5 years. COVID has undoubtedly caused tremendous damage to the global economy, to citizens, to all our living conditions. However, one benefit cannot be denied, and that is the boost it has given to the change, the adoption of broadband and digital connectivity. It is simply unimaginable to exist without digital services and connectivity these days. Without it, many of us would not even have the form of continuity we have been having in these challenging times in work, health, and other living essentials. Our eternal gratitude to all the concerned players of telecom and services for making this possible. We tend to take it for granted, but without those players, we would not have been able to do this. What the above has shown is that the framework of robust digital infrastructure, which is required, which is a pipe for delivering the digital services, it is an absolute necessity. In this context, it is important to understand correctly the meaning of digital infrastructure. Generally, when we say digital infrastructure, in a common man, it tends to conjure up visions of antennas and towers and electrical switches or electronic switches and wires maybe. However, that is not a complete picture. What we need to probably rely on at this stage is to go to the great ITU, which we are celebrating today. That is the apex body for telecommunications in the world. And what better authority than ITU to understand what is digital infrastructure? And even as recent as 2019, in their Asia-Pac conference, they have defined digital infrastructure beautifully. And they have said it is a key enabler of all benefits to society and comprehensively defined digital infrastructure. I will not go through the long definition, but suffice it to say that they have said it includes internet backbone, undersea cables, optic fiber, fixed networks, mobile networks, satellite communications, Wi-Fi, software, apps, etc. So this sort of comprehensive setup is required, framework is required, if you really want to be a powerhouse in digital infrastructure to meet the challenging times. India's own digital policy is also clearly in sync with the above-mentioned ITU view and lists all these items, fixed, mobile, Wi-Fi, satellite communications for digital infrastructure. In their very first chapter, in NDCP 2018, the first chapter is Connect India. And in that, they list all these and give clear-cut goals to achieve in these. Yes, mobile always comes to mind because India is a mobile-first country. And what mobile networks have delivered for this country in the last 25 years is something remarkable. They have given connectivity to the nation. And mobile networks are the dominant force for us, even today in broadband. However, what ITU and NDCP and reality shows is that while they are a very necessary condition for digital infrastructure, a very major and necessary condition, they are not a sufficient condition. You need also the calibrated play of other elements like fiber. Optic fiber is extremely important. Satellite communications, Wi-Fi, software and apps, etc. And without these, we will not even be able to leverage the maximum out of 4G and LTE broadband, but we may not even be able to enter 5G. So we need to have a clear understanding and development on all this. The time has come for us to therefore support mobile networks adequately through the play of all other elements. Because a mobile 5G or 4G or 6G can give you in the last mile from the antenna or the tower to the mobile device. Stupendous connectivity and speed. But how do you aggregate all that and carry the humongous traffic back to the processing networks, back to the nodes and the destination? For that, you need optic fiber, you need all the other things, satellite communications, Wi-Fi. So we have to support mobile networks in these challenging times. I mentioned Wi-Fi, I mentioned optic fiber, but satellite communications is something which is also very, very important for India. In our opinion, satellite communications time and place has come for India in such a diverse country with so many remote and inaccessible areas. Nothing other than satellite communications can be used to get a cost-effective solution for broadband and to reach it to all the unconnected citizens of India. We believe that satellite communications is also invaluable for Internet of Things, IoT, cellular backhaul in remote areas. It's a wonderful way of doing it. Disaster management. We have so many cyclones, even right now, Gujarat area is struggling, Goa is struggling with cyclones. In such conditions, only satellite communications can stay and help. disaster management, bridging digital divide in the rural area as well as in the urban area, there is digital divide. Everywhere you need that also. So all of these have their roles to play. Nothing is less important. They may not be equal, but they each has to be in a calibrated way. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying that India has made it happen in mobile connectivity in the last 25 years. We have seen that. I'm sure it will similarly achieve excellence in the provision of robust digital infrastructure to cope with the current challenging times. I once again wish all the stakeholders and all our customers, most of all, who are making this possible, all the very best, and thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, TV. I would now like to request the special guests of honor and the speakers to please join me in the release of a report titled The Economic Value of Wi-Fi Spectrum in India, authored by my dear friend, Professor Rekha Jain. May we please run the video?
Many thanks to our respected speakers for releasing the report on the economic value of Wi-Fi spectrum for India. The report has been authored by Professor Rekha Jain, Senior Visiting Professor at ICRIA, and the past chair for the IIIMA Telecom Center of Excellence. Highlights of the report will be presented by Professor Rekha Jain after the release of the report.
Thank you very much. Professor Rekha Jain is a renowned academician with extensive experience in working with the government and public and private sectors in several projects of national importance. Her areas of expertise include spectrum, internet governance, rural digital connectivity, infrastructure development, besides many other fields of research and analysis in the digital communications domain. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rajat, and thank you, BIF, for the very lovely video that you made on the release of the report. Without taking any time, I would like to present the report now. So I guess it's visible to everybody?
Not yet, Rekha ji. Are you sharing it now?
Yeah, I said present now. So.
Okay, but then you have to click on the screen itself and then it will share.
Okay, let me try that again. Sorry for this.
You'll get a little box in your screen which shows the actual video screen. Click on that. The tab at the bottom will turn blue. It will say share.
Oh, God. This is terrible. Yeah, I said present now. That is share. Okay. What the heck? So is it visible now?
Not yet, Rekha ji.
Oh God. So, it's for me.
Why don't you send it to me?
Okay.
In the meantime?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
How do I send it? Arun? Yes. Yes, Arun.
Yes, it has come out, madam.
Professor Jain, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Rekha. Go ahead.
You need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry everybody for this thing. I'm so used to working with Zoom that I didn't realize that there was some technology. Anyway, I'm very happy to present this report on the economic value of de-licensed bands in India from 2020 to 25. Now, when we look at the unlicensed spectrum and India, we are a spectrum-starved country, despite the fact that this is a resource that is uniformly distributed across all countries, unlike any other resource. As we all know, licensed spectrum, each operator gets about 1/4 of the licensed spectrum as compared to those in other countries. And unlicensed spectrum is also far less than in other countries, as the graph at the bottom shows. These other countries, USA, UK, China, Japan, Brazil, have more than 15,000 megahertz of unlicensed spectrum compared to about 689 megahertz of unlicensed spectrum for India. Now, the important thing is not the specific values, but the wide differential between what is available in other countries and India. And most of this difference is made because of the de-licensing of the V band, which has already happened in most of these countries. And additionally, the 6 gigahertz band has already been de-licensed. So if we were to de-license the V band, then our spectrum value, unlicensed quantum of spectrum would be very comparable to those in other countries. Now, we all know the importance of Wi-Fi in the internet infrastructure, and that the internet is the driver of all economic activity, or a large part of the economic activity, and therefore both licensed and de-licensed spectrum are critical. And because Wi-Fi is the dominant enabling technology, and we all, the set of people in this meeting I don't need to go through why Wi-Fi is important, and because it's a conduit for most data traffic and enabling many new and applications and business models, including for BharatNet. It could be a very good supporting technology, and the demand for Wi-Fi is exploding. These are reasons enough for us to focus on unlicensed or de-licensed bands and Wi-Fi. Now, what are the drivers for assessing the economic value of de-licensed bands? Why should we do it at all? So DOT has a concern that, if they, for 6 gigahertz, which is that if they were to de-license it, they have de-licensed the 5.8 gigahertz, large amounts of spectrum in that band. So why do the 6 gigahertz unlicensed? First of all, the 5.8 gigahertz de-licensing was late as compared to several other countries. And I think, forgetting even about that, to drive the policy process, it is important to understand the different drivers of value and trade-offs between various bands. How do we know which band, how much value, what is the cost, what is the value, benefit, and so on? And given the criticality of unlicensed spectrum, one question that arises is, how do I assess the economic value of this resource? Unlike the licensed spectrum, where auction values or allocation prices are good indicators of the economic value. In addition, country-specific assessments are relevant, since patterns of usage of spectrum depends on existing regulation. For example, we are not able to, use Wi-Fi 6E just now because it's not unlicensed. To our knowledge, this is the first of a kind study in India, and I would like to highlight the role of BIF as a think tank in supporting this study. So when I look at the economic value, so I'll go straight to what our study showed. Since no price was paid for spectrum, we decided to look at the economic value as a sum of the economic surplus plus contributions to GDP. Now, when we look at contribution, the economic surplus, it consists of two parts, consumer and producer surplus, and contributions to GDP are also, contributions to GDP are also has two components. One of them is the increase, the economic value due to higher internet speeds. And there are many studies to say that higher internet speeds lead to higher contributions to GDP. And then is the second part of the contribution to GDP comes due to the development of the device ecosystem. For the V band, we have specifically looked for short-range devices, SRDs, and for the Wi-Fi 6E, we have specifically looked at machine-to-machine and IoT devices and how they're going to grow in our economy if these bands were to be licensed. Now, as with any study, there are certain caveats that this is only a model. And it depends very much on the assumptions that are made, the parameter values that are taken. The use case scenarios in the Wi-Fi are especially challenging because they evolve all the time. For example, RFID's economic value can only be computed or begun to be computed after its use starts in the retail sector. So our results show that the economic value of Wi-Fi is nearly 6% of the projected GDP for 2025. Now, this itself should be a very strong reason for us to work towards delicensing the Wi-Fi bands which are currently not delicensed. And also to understand what are the components of economic value of Wi-Fi in the existing bands. We can just look at the pie chart here, and what you see is that in the current scenario, in 2025, the 79% of the economic value will be contributed by the existing bands, 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz. And as we will show later, the contribution of 5.8 gigahertz is significant, which is also significant because it leads to higher internet speeds. Now, the contributions of Wi-Fi 6E and V-band are relatively smaller at 10 and 11% respectively. And therefore, it may appear that, these are smaller areas of focus for the policymakers. But this would be the wrong conclusion to come to, because for Wi-Fi 6E and V-band, we are only taking their contributions from 23 onwards. And if we would, because we expect that if it is delicensed in 21, which itself is an optimistic assumption, and then devices and networks would get deployed by 2023. And as you know, in the initial years, the deployment rate is slower, and therefore these are making a much smaller contribution. In terms of what we look, if we were to compare the economic value of Wi-Fi in 2020 to that in 2025, it is nearly 4 times as high. And therefore, it's a very good measure to show that Wi-Fi is the dominant technology which is going to contribute greatly to the growth in the Indian economy. Now, we've then broken down this graph that we had, the pie chart that we have, which is Wi-Fi, the regular Wi-Fi now, the existing Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi 6E and V-band. Each of this has been further broken into separate components. And if I look at the total economic value of Wi-Fi in US dollar billion and as a percentage of the total economic value, what we find is that, So what we find, So what we find in the V-band is that the SRD market revenues contribute to about 3% of the total revenue, the total economic value. And growth in IoT penetration contributes to 1%. Consumer surplus and producer surplus are very, very significant parts of this, because let me just take a moment to say what is consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is the value that a consumer gets over and above what they are paying for. So for example, when I offload my mobile data into a Wi-Fi network, I get higher speeds. But I'm actually paying the mobile network operator for the mobile network speeds, and without paying any additional amounts, I'm getting the higher internet speed. Now the difference between these two, how much money would I have to pay had I to pay that additional money for the higher internet speed, is what is consumer surplus. And producer surplus is the amount of money that a service provider, like a telecom service provider or an internet service provider, would have to pay to what is it that they are currently investing in, and what is the amount that they would have to invest in less because of the new kinds of architecture or unlicensed bands. They don't have to pay money for using the Wi-Fi band for mobile offloading, for example. So this differential between amount of money that they pay and the amount of money that they would be willing to pay, that differential is the producer surplus. And you can see that this is very significant. Producer surplus is in fact the largest component of this entire pie chart, which just shows that it is the telecom service providers who will benefit the most. And they should look at this in relationship to their stand on delicensing of the V band. The device and equipment ecosystem, they are contributing about 11% of the total economic value here.
I'm sorry, just a small information. The interpreter is being switched, please.
Sorry?
Just, the interpreter is being switched, ma'am, just to let everyone know.
Oh, okay. So components of the total economic value of Wi-Fi, which was the largest value, about 79% of the total economic value in 2025. Here we see that mobile data offloading accounts for nearly 80% of the total economic surplus. So what does it mean is that the moment I am whether as a consumer or as a telecom service provider, I use the mobile data offloading, I offload the mobile data, there's a certain value that I've got, which is a latent value, which I don't have to pay for explicitly. And that constitutes about 81% of the total economic surplus. And contribution of Wi-Fi routers in the 5.8 gigahertz and their contribution to GDP is due to the higher internet speeds. And therefore, any concerns that the DOT had, that what is the value of the 5.8 gigahertz band that was delicensed very recently, this value is much higher, economic value is much higher than for the 2.4 gigahertz. So that should be the rationale driving greater delicensing in the higher bands. And again, you can see the producer surplus contributes about 51%. That means it is the telecom service providers who get a higher economic value than any other entity or stakeholder in this game. For the total economic value of V band, so not all application scenarios are visible to us right now, but whatever we could envisage based on the maturity of the ecosystem in those countries where it has been delicensed, we see that the SRD market revenue actually contributes to about $6 billion or 29% of the total economic value. Now, this should be a great trigger for delicensing of this band simply because of the GDP contributions the SRD market would make. And of course, new kinds of devices and applications like AR, VR headsets and the surrounding applications of training and development, etc., telemedicine, these can all take off in a very significant way. And for the components of the total value of Wi-Fi 6E band, we see that the growth in IoT penetration, and this is a very important area for all of us to focus on as citizens of the country. See, the growth in IoT contributes to 14% of the economic value in this band, which really means if we were to look at 6E, Wi-Fi 6E, we are looking at massive machine-to-machine communication and IoT ecosystem. And there are studies to indicate that for every doubling of the IoT devices that are there, the internet, the GDP contribution increases by 0.3%. And the large numbers of M2M devices that are likely to be there under Industry 4.0 just indicate that how important it is for India to look at this source of economic value. Further, because these are very specific, these device ecosystem, which is, underlying the IoT, would be very specific to the Indian context. This is a great opportunity for the Indian policymakers to recognize that Atmanirbhar Bharat or India-specific use cases can really emerge in this space. These technologies are very transformational in that sense, including 5G or, the Wi-Fi 6E, because they are not it is not that just the TSPs are giving us a service and we are getting values and benefits out of connectivity. We are creating a whole new ecosystems in different verticals, and that is going to drive the economic growth. And here is a very important issue here to consider, that were we to de-license Wi-Fi 6E now, then Indian developers and the Indian ecosystem would be, would be at par with the rest of the world. But if we are going to take very long, then all those applications would have already, emerged, and we would just be copy pasting them in our context. Remember, all these calculations do not take into account the spillover effects due to higher quality user experience facilitated by higher speeds and bandwidth. So what are the recommendations? Of course, obvious that we should facilitate Wi-Fi penetration. We are extremely low in comparison to other countries. The report, gives exact data on it. And we need to develop an appropriate roadmap. The PM Vani initiative is a good step in this direction, but it requires a lot of sorting out of the implementation issues. And in the absence of such a framework, huge economic value is not being leveraged. The second recommendation is need to de-license as much and as quickly as possible, especially the higher bands. And therefore, the concern with policy makers about 5.8 and 6 gigahertz and 60 gigahertz should really be, they should use this kind of reports and data to understand that because of the higher internet speeds, their contribution to the GDP is higher, and therefore there is a logical reason to de-license more of the higher frequency bands. And leverage the opportunity in the M2M IoT space. I've already talked about how the M2M IoT space can lead to opportunities for developing India-specific applications, Atmanirbhar Bharat, simultaneously with global developments. And most important, spectrum not utilized to its full potential is a national economic waste. Something which is lying, it's like, the money lying in your locker, and it's not being used, you are not getting any value out of it. And therefore, policymakers in other countries, in the FCC, one of the KPIs is for the policymakers is to see how much spectrum they have been able to put out, both licensed and unlicensed, for commercial use. So it is imperative for us to adopt new models of spectrum governance early and, to strengthen the Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat and Digital India. And DOT's view regarding 6 gigahertz, besides the economic value considerations, I think the most important driver for delicensing 6 gigahertz should be the fact that if it can, if it is delicensed and is combined with the 5.8 gigahertz, you can get 860 megahertz channels or 320 megahertz channels, which will lead to new classes of devices and applications and unleash the creative opportunities available to Indian developers and ecosystems. So thank you. And I hope I've been able to keep to my time.
Thank you so much, Professor Jain, for your excellent presentation.
And I once again apologize for the kink at my end in terms of getting it onto this.
Not at all, not at all. More than made up by the quality of the presentation that you made to us. And I'm sure that many of our audience is eagerly waiting for the release of the paper. Just for your information, the paper will be put up on our website immediately after the function is over. So go to www.broadbandindiaforum.com and you will find a link to the new presentation and the paper which has just been released. This is really food for thought and clearly an enormous economic opportunity waiting to be seized by the policymakers. Our next speaker this evening is Ms. Nivruti Rai, Intel India and Vice President Product Supply Chain for the global supply chain part of Intel. Nivruti leads Intel's India operations, driving innovation, cross-group efficiencies, and execution for engineering teams delivering global products and roadmaps. She also leads engagements with national and local governments and policymakers, as well as collaboration with ecosystem players to enable innovation and entrepreneurship. Nivruti, please go ahead.
Thank you, Rajat, for this generous introduction. And I must say that I really enjoyed Professor Rekha Jain's presentation. For the details, the one statement that just left a mark in my heart is spectrum unutilized is a national waste. It's like money utilizing, and there are people dying of hunger for the need of money. So that was amazing. I decided to change the storyline of my presentation because Professor Jain covered so much about the technology that I decided that I'll make my presentation have a different flavor, such that I don't kind of give redundant messages. So lot of interesting discussions between TV and Professor Jain. What I want to start with is, giving some information that many of you already know, but perhaps, understanding the scale of the problem will give us, momentum behind all of us coming together and increase the digitalization and the technology adoption. So let me start with what happened over the last year and a half. A lot of learning and a very expensive year in terms of losses to humanity. What was amazing is, before the start of this conversation, we were talking about who we lost to COVID, but COVID taught us a lot. COVID taught us that during such wartime with the viruses like coronavirus, the one path of leading solutions for our humanity was technology. Just to tell you that what happened over the last year is a lot of the world was put at halt. We were on our knees. And I must tell you that, 50% of the world was not connected. 31% of the world children did not have access to teleeducation. Now, while I'm quoting world, India is probably worse in terms of percentage of children not getting tele-education. So we all know that 60% of our schools are government schools, and about 45-ish percentage are private schools. And we know that many of our government school children did not have access to tele-education for two reasons. One, connectivity was not there. Two, devices was a problem. So that, having said that, I want to share, the bright side of things also, what technology enabled. Technology enabled a lot of us to be able to work from wherever we were. Just to give you an idea that Zoom participation or Zoom leverage increased 30x. From 10 million people using Zoom to 300 people using Zoom happened over the last year. All of us, suddenly I was typing a message and the autocorrect comes and says what it was Zoom, or Zooming, and so it has become part of our vocabulary. Just like, so many other words like mRNA is now part of vocabulary. So many of us know about mRNA, which we didn't know. So life has changed. And the one technology that has been really, really critical is connectivity. Connectivity, along with, the power of technology that AI brings, that, the ability to use AI for the different segments, edge computing, distributed computing, all of them came on the fore in an accelerated pace like never before. A few changes or transformation that we all have witnessed in our consumer behavior. I'll just give you, I did not have the ability to get the entire data, but let me tell you, just over 2 months, March and April, Baiju saw 25% of their consumer addition in just 2 months. They went up to 50 million and 13.5 million happened in 2 months. And that was last year. Imagine what this year, would have done. Another data that I can share with you is 2 months again, March and April of last year. Unfortunately, I have only 2 months of data through, platforms like MFine and all. What I learned was in 2 months alone, India witnessed 50 million people going through teleconsultation. How was it enabled? Through connectivity. And 50 million may look like a small number when we have a population on 1.3, but it is a start. And the goal is to get India connected such that this 50 million translates into as many number of people who want to teleconsultation. I'll tell you the other thing that I learned over the last year and a half is while the virus is raiding our lifestyle outside, fear is raiding our lifestyle inside. So a lot of that can be addressed through, our children going to school, the ability of teleconsultation. Can we look at a consultation from around the world? While nighttime, you can have an ICU, but nighttime you cannot have a teleconsultation. Can we build a solution or a system that I can access a doctor in a teleconsultation who's sitting in the Dubai, who's sitting, in a country where it is 3 hours away from us, 5 hours away from 12 hours. So create a 24-hour model of teleconsultation. So consumer behavior changed a lot, and many of it was happening because of connectivity. Organizational behavior. We all got to work from home or work from anywhere. And I tell you that I can tell from my company's perspective, the Wi-Fi usage increased more than double. Similarly, I would feel that many organizations have gone through, organizational changes, enabling many of us to be able to work from anywhere. I am also excited about this opportunity because, I feel that eventually this, the parity in the different pay scales that people get based on which country you're part of may go away because of the ability for people to work from anywhere that, all of these connections will enable. Societal behavior, a lot of us were not comfortable with e-retail shopping for our groceries, have no other choice. We have started adopting technology like never before. Government is looking at creating a lot of the support infrastructure. Last time when TV and I were talking, I was telling him that infrastructure for connectivity needs to be taught like as if we were thinking water distribution, road connection, connectivity, data. If India has digitalization as its agenda, we've got to think of enabling connectivity in a framework like we do water, electricity, and road. Only then can we look at addressing the digital divide that our country is seeing today. I started with the world saw 30% of children not get tele-education, and I'm sure in my country, 50% of the children did not get access to tele-education. Look at how much behind they are getting. So how can we make that happen? We can make that happen if we come together. We come up in a way where we don't just address the societal good. Of course, that's number one. How can we bring economic benefit? How can we create opportunities that these connectivities is enabling from India for the world? So my goal is bring societal benefit, bring economic benefit, and leverage the framework. Do not leave the spectrum unused, because it will translate into bridging the digital divide that we have all witnessed, our country has witnessed. I also want to talk about that what happened over the last year and a half. While you saw the Zoom calls go 30x, you saw Wi-Fi doubling up, you also saw how many people were connecting to the internet. So 625 million, that's roughly half of our population. And I'm not saying half of the population had internet access, because a family can have multiple access, but 625 million internet accesses happened. And bunch of the addition was happening through rural connectivity, from rural semi-urban cities and places of our country. Now, if we are looking at that kind of internet usage, we have to address the need of connectivity of our villages also. I'm happy to tell you that Intel, in partnership with many others, and I must give a huge thanks to Professor Rekha Jain, because she partnered with us, and we were able to demonstrate connectivity about 100 megabits per second at a village, from Gram Panchayat all the way to the village. And from the village, this is the middle mile that we addressed. And we demonstrated in Moana, a small village in Haryana. What did we demonstrate? We demonstrated teleconsultation. We demonstrated online education. And I also am looking at leveraging a platform for e-retail. Our villages need to be connected to the world to be able to generate more economic benefits for themselves, for their village, and for the country. Unless we enable them to get access to the world market, they're limited to their own little village. They're limited to selling their products to their own limited space. So I'm very excited about how we were able to demonstrate in Moana, but thanks to many people, including Government of Haryana and everybody else who supported us. A huge thanks, but that's the kind of effort we need. That's the kind of effort we all need to work together to enable things to happen at the rate that we dream to. If we want to look at addressing population scale need of education, health, and economic growth that our country is dreaming for, we have to enable our villages. Unless the 70% population is taking the advantage and the benefits of connectivity, those dreams will not happen. So I'm looking forward to working with many of you. Intel has many solutions in the space of RAN. I'm excited about the 5G capabilities, of leveraging bandwidth for priority needs, whether it is health or whether it is education or whether it is a surgery that is happening remotely. So looking forward to working with each one of you. India has a large population. India has a large need. India has aspirations to be, leading the digitalization. I think it's opportunity for us to come and work together. We have the capabilities, we have the technology required. I think we have to work together because 5G infrastructure is very expensive. And like I said, we all have to work together to show economic benefit, social benefit, and then only we can drive the growth, economic growth for our country. So thank you very much, everybody. Looking forward to hearing from all of you. Great that we have this forum going on. Thanks to TV, thanks to everyone. Looking forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you so very much, Nivruti, for your very excellent message on this special occasion of World Telecommunications and Information Society Day. Let us not forget about those who are still remain unconnected. Our need is to connect the unconnected. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. Max Grandred, Director General of the GSMA. Max spearheads GSM's initiatives around the world to amplify and accelerate the mobile industry's impact on all 17 SDGs across developed and developing markets. He led the mobile industry in becoming the first sector to broadly commit to the UN SDGs in 2016. He also chairs the working group on digital gender divide to foster equal inclusion of women in broadband access and use. Due to an unscheduled travel engagement, however, he is unable to be with us today, but he has very kindly sent us a video recording of his message. May I please request that the video be played?
Ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon from a grey London. I am honored to join you today, and thank you Broadband Forum India for your kind invitation. It is really my pleasure to be with you today. At the GSMA, our vision is to unlock the full power of mobile connectivity so that people, industry, and society thrive. Now, this is our focus in normal times of business, and even more so in difficult times of economic uncertainty. We all know that connectivity has never been more important, and that the world's reliance on mobile broadband has never been greater. After all, mobile is the primary way that most people access the internet. And in the last 15 months or so, we have seen that mobile broadband access ensures the functioning of emergency services. It enables government administrations and large parts of the workforce to continue to be productive throughout the crisis, and allows friends and families to stay informed and in touch. Over the last 15 months, we have seen how mobile operators have risen to multiple unexpected challenges with proactive and extraordinary contributions. Of course, mobile operators have long been pioneers in acting ethically and responsibly in the digital age, and India has set a strong and firm foundation. Now, we know that mobile is the primary way that Indians access the internet, and that 4G networks are already available to almost 99% of the population, and that consumers benefit from some of the lowest prices for mobile services actually in the world. Now, with spectrum auctions planned for this year, India now has the opportunity to become a 5G leader by enabling infrastructure, affordability, consumer readiness, services, and content. India is already one of the largest and fastest growing markets for digital consumers, propelled by both the public and private sectors. And this digital transformation is expected to reshape consumer interactions in healthcare, education, agriculture, retail, logistics, well, in fact, all sectors, and create a significant economic value for consumers, businesses, and government. Being a connected nation comes with opportunities and challenges. Now, yes, 5G will be very important for India. Now we all see it on the horizon. And so I would like to talk about the need for spectrum and the policies that will enable sound implementation. 5G networks will bring transformation with unimaginable social and economic benefits for India. Between 2020 and 2040, the GSMA forecasts that 5G technologies will make an overall contribution of approximately $455 billion to the Indian economy, reaching 0.6% of the GDP by 2040. 5G will enable new use cases that were just not possible with previous technological standards. Now we will see enhanced mobile broadband, massive Internet of Things, fixed wireless access, and ultra-reliable low latency communications. And we expect millimeter wave to be important in enabling new use cases for all core sectors. Of course, at the GSMA, we believe that there is need for commitment to spectrum harmonization that rewards economies of scale. 5G also has the potential to provide an incredible multiplier effect to the economy. In combination with AI, big data, blockchain, smart platforms, and IoT. And at the same time, as we are seeing a blurring between rural and urban due to urban to rural migration and population shifts with the pandemic, we will see faster, more cost-efficient, and more secure solutions. And so we urge government and policymakers to support all the promise that will come with 5G. It is important that policy frameworks act as a stimulus for the mobile industry to ensure a rapid and sustainable 5G deployment and India's digital vision. We recommend timely assignment of spectrum, both for access and backhaul. Spectrum is a valuable and scarce public asset, best used for widespread high-quality networks. We recommend setting reserve prices for spectrum at affordable levels to incentivize investment. 5G rollout depends on the ability of operators to invest, and extremely high spectrum prices means that consumers do not benefit, and India's effort to become a high-promise 5 trillion economy slows down. And we recommend an open consultation process for planning on the WRC 19 millimeter wave bands, transparent and uncomplicated, ensuring that more than 300 megahertz of mid-band spectrum is available for 5G during the next auction at an affordable reserve price. And a note about 6 gigahertz. Now, the full speed and capabilities of 5G really do depend on the extra capacity of licensed 6 gigahertz spectrum. In fact, there is a clear threat to this growth if sufficient 6 GHz spectrum is not made available for 5G, bringing greater social inclusion with affordable connectivity, reaching all users, and bringing the data speeds and capacity needed for smart cities, industrial automation, and transport. And WRC23 will provide the opportunity to harmonize the 6 GHz band. Now, mobile operators need the financial certainty and quality guaranteed that licensed spectrum offers them to make massive long-term investments in critical infrastructure for citizens and governments alike. The risks surrounding network investments are significantly increased without that assurance of long-term reliable and predictable spectrum access. Licensed spectrum, which enables wider coverage areas and better quality of service, has been central to the global success of mobile services. India is the land of efficient solutions, smart people, and demanding youth. Despite the unprecedented crisis that India is going through, it has created its mark in the Leaders' League. And the world now looks to India to adopt new technologies and to build creative new applications for the world. At this most difficult time for India, I warmly extend my sympathies to everyone who is suffering and affected by COVID-19, and I sincerely wish for things to normalize as soon as possible. With those words, thank you very much. and bye-bye.
Remarkable how, in spite of the fact that Max was unable to be with us physically here, he was really amongst us, and he was speaking exactly the same message that each and every one of the previous speakers has given. Please release more spectrum, and there is a massive opportunity awaiting the people of India to connect the unconnected. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Shakya, DDG Satellite, Department of Telecommunications, an ITS officer of the 1988 batch. He has over 30 years of experience in handling various facets of telecom. He had earlier served as senior advisor to the ICT Authority for the Government of Mauritius and as director in various functions within DOT, such as Internet Monitoring System, Security Vigilance and Telecom Monitoring, Quality Assurance, and Termcell. Sir, as I hand over to you, there have been a series of specific questions based on TV's opening comments that have been given to us, and I would like to read them out, and in the hope that you will address them in your talk to us, sir.
Please.
The question really is, the importance of cellular backhaul over satellite has already been brought out by the TRAI in its recommendations on this topic about a year back. Is it possible for this matter to be taken up with all the relevant recommendations? Connect the unconnected and cellular backhaul are the two major topics. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Rajatji. I hope I'm audible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So the warm greetings as a part of Telecom fraternity on the World Telecommunication and Information Society Day. Also, I would like to extend the salute to our friends in the telecom for not only meeting the needs of telecommunication and the bandwidth caused by, but also to ensure that the connectivity is available, enabling them from home, or as Madam rightly pointed out, work from anywhere, teleconsultations, in real sense, operators, workforces they are committed along with other COVID warriors to help the society to meet the desires and fighting, including COVID, by virtually over mobile apps or otherwise. With this, let me go straight with respect to the question came out. Let me share happily that the recommendations forwarded by Telecom Regulatory Authority of India relating to allowing the backhaul connectivity for mobile networks using satellite has been considered. The backhaul connectivity for the in addition to mobile, it has also been considered for the Wi-Fi access. The discussion have been there at length at the level of the Standing Committee, also at the level of the Digital Communication Commission. We do need few clarifications in understanding with respect to the costing of the spectrum usage charges in case it is provided for the backhaul. That is being addressed because currently the connectivity for backhaul using satellite under the national long distance is formula based, and it was recommended by the tribe the formula based from charging. There had been some considerations typically because the AGR percentage charges in the existing TUZ VSAT license is different than what is being recommended for the satellite backhaul. Very soon these aspects will be, and you will find design backhaul connectivity by the satellite, not only for the mobile, but also for the Wi-Fi access. Also, let me share some other steps taken by the government to make the ease of business in the field of satellite-based telecommunication services. You may be remembering there were multiple instructions for getting the in-principle approval relating to the changes in the technology, the adoption of the new technologies, or new license in the telecommunication using satellites. They all had been put together, repealed, and the new revised guidelines have been issued, state-lining the actions in a very clear and crystal form, benefiting the people, so they are not required to move from one department to another, and also with the defined timelines that what activities has to be done within what times, whether it's relating to the WPC or relating to the NOCC or related to the Department of Space. That document we had already released. Also, for some of us which may not be aware of, in the captive VSAT CUZ license, we had already rationalized the charging of spectrum usage, which was being demanded for a long by the industry. One more important announcement which I can share, which is likely to come in this week. We felt that the interface requirement released by the Telecom Engineering Center needs updation, and accordingly the restrictions which were placed in terms of the data speed rate have been removed from there. Now there is no limit that at what rate a VSAT terminal can send or receive the data in the satellite VSAT communication based services. Similarly, the restrictions that what should be done in the mesh topology, what should be done in the star topologies, those restrictions had also been dispensed with. The government has also taken forward to remove the restrictions with respect to the various sizes of the antennas meant for the user and terminals or at the hub-based connectivity. So these are the steps which the government has already taken. In respect of the Spacecom policy, I'm sure all of you are aware, maybe for the benefit of the world industry who are joining from outside country, I will repeat that India has already announced the private participation in the space sector. Earlier, the satellites were being launched in the country by the Indian Space Research Organization. Now their facilities are open for the private industry, not only to come forward and use their facilities for the design and development of the satellites, but also for the development of launching vehicles and development of their own satellites. they can use the orbitals filed through Indian administration has moved further choice for the satellite service operator to come forward in light of the latest technologies of low Earth orbits, which are going to benefit in multiple ways, whether it's relating to the ultra low latency, or it's related to the higher bandwidth, or connectivity to the remote. So at the government end, we are committed that the vision what the Honorable Prime Minister has put for us, the digital inclusion, the connectivity to every village on fiber, wherever fiber connectivity is not possible, government will definitely make alternative arrangements as supporting technology from the satellite that may be served using the Universal Service Obligation Fund, meeting the deficit if it is not techno-commercially viable for the operators. And you all, being the very learned, finest brains in the country who can help us in bringing the better technologies, in bringing the better regulations and policies, we in the DOT, especially in the satellite division, are open for your views, for your criticism, for your guidance, for your dialogue, so that we can come out with a good document which can enable us together in meeting the dreams of Atmanirbhar, connecting the unconnected, whatever friends had spoken, especially the Dr. Nivrati who mentioned that a large number of our students in rural are not able to join tele-education. It's our duty to enable all possible platforms, making it happen and give them feel that they are part of us and we take care of them. I think with this, I thank you, Broadband India Forum, for providing the platform to the DOT. And I am sure after going through the report of Dr. Rekha Jain, we will be needing discussion, and wherever possible, whatever possible, we'll try to take it forward. With this, I close my talk. Thank you. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you very much, Shakya ji. Thank you so much for clarifying that there is no doubt to the fact that SATCOM forms an integral part of the overall digital communications solutions that are needed to continue the efforts to enhance connectivity and leave no stone unturned, no part of the country unconnected. Thank you. For the next section of our program for the evening, TV, may I hand over to you?
Thanks, Shabir. Excellent talk. Thank you, Rajat. We now come to a very, very important aspect of today's special program. The day is special, and we've got one very special guest with us today, Mr. K. Ramchand, formerly DG Telecom, ITS till 13th of the month, this month. He was kind enough to join us as a special guest of honor. Thank you, Mr. Ramchand, for being here today with us. I'd like to first say a few words about Mr. Ramchand. He is one of the senior-most officers of the ITS from the 1982 batch and an alumnus of the Jabalpur Engineering College. He has over 36 years of experience in telecom domain in almost all the wings of DoT. Be it planning, operations, projects, training, policy, all areas. He's been there. And before he came on to a department at the headquarters in his latest stint, he was a senior DDG and head of LSA covering both Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. And earlier, he has been one of the prime movers of making the national IT projects of BSNL happen, as well as its mobile services. So he has a very distinguished record as a member of the Indian Telecom Service, and we are very proud to have worked with him during his latest tenure in the headquarters, and also we've been associated with him even earlier, but especially in the latest stint. And we'd like to thank him exceedingly for having taken the trouble to join us. He's joining us from Hyderabad, and we would like to humbly show our appreciation and gratitude by presenting a citation to Sir. Since he has just retired. Can you put a citation up, Rajat?
Please put up the citation, Tima.
The citation is there before you. I'll read it out for your convenience. Broadband India Forum. We wish to respectfully place on record our deep appreciation and heartfelt thanks for the outstanding support and prolific contributions made towards the overall development, growth, and progress of India's broadband and digital services sector by Shri K. Ramchand, ITS. Throughout his career, culminating with his position in the Department of Telecommunications as DG Telecom, he has been a mature, calm, and composed individual, possessing immense domain knowledge with a balanced approach to solutions and providing motivation to all. He has been instrumental in the launching of BSNL mobile services and nationwide IT projects in DoT and BSNL. He is a person with long experience in almost all wings of department, and more recently has played a key role in several landmark initiatives of the government, such as the work from home policy, the PM Vani public Wi-Fi policy, and the Telecom PLI scheme, among many others. On behalf of the BIF membership, advisors, associates, partners, and the entire broadband ecosystem in the country, we warmly wish Shri K. Ramchand continued success in his future endeavors and all happiness and good health. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. And may I request you to say a few words on this occasion. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Mr. T.V. Ramchandran, for an excellent description of my 37 years experience. The connectivity here seems to be poor, so I would like to switch off my video, and I will switch on the video at the end of my talk. So once again, good evening, everybody, and my greetings on this World Telecommunications Day. Thank you, Mr. Ramchandran, for the information of everybody else here. It is on the insistence of Mr. Ramchandran that I joined all of you in this video meeting. As he said earlier, I retired last week, as a DG Telecom and a member of technology. I was not very keen in participating in this. I thought once I retired, let me relax and enjoy. But participating in this meeting in the august presence of so many distinguished speakers is really a joy, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for the invite. The theme for this year's World Telecom Day has three important words. One is the challenging times. Yes, everybody understands that the whole world is facing it. The other one is the digital transformation. In fact, digital transformation has started long time back, but its importance has increased, as the earlier speakers have pointed out, in the last 1 year, when we have seen this pandemic completely changing the way we live. And the need for accelerating this transformation has arisen because of the different requirements, especially tele-education, telemedicine, and work from home. Many the other speakers today have pointed out the deficiencies in the telecom infrastructure in the country, the unused spectrum, and other issues. Yes, DOT is seized of all these issues, and I would like to highlight so that the infrastructure in the country, and we do accelerate the digital transformation. Digital communications has started almost what I mean by digital transformation, in my opinion, is to have proper applications which use the telecom infrastructure for the benefit of the common man, for the benefit of all, irrespective of whether the citizen is in the urban area or the rural area. The digital divide in rural is to bridge that gap. So easy in such a large country like India. Terrain. The privatization of telecom services in the 90s helped Indians to get access to digital telecommunications infrastructure. And today, we are seeing, if we are quoting figures like 700 million internet customers, the credit goes to the open policies of the government and the investments made by the private sector. The government on its part is also investing in rural areas and remote areas where the telecom service providers are not able to reach out because of techno-commercial conditions. As you all know, BharatNet Phase 2, as announced by the Honorable PM, is targeted to reach all the villages with optical fiber by 22-23. In Phase 1, we did try to reach around 1.5 lakh villages, and we learned hard lessons. We corrected them, and now we are going to expand BharatNet with an IP-MPLS ring topology up to the Gram Panchayat level. And from Gram Panchayat to the village, it will be on an overhead optical fiber wherever possible. And as Mr. Shakya said, where optical fiber is not feasible because of the terrain, we would look for other alternatives like microwave and of the spectrum or applications. But the idea is to reach each and every village, each and every school, each and every primary health center in the rural area with a broadband internet connection. We have also for the other side for BPOs and KPOs. We and everybody, every government, every state government, every citizen has realized the importance of telecom structure, telecom infrastructure. As the applications are concerned, during the pandemic, along with CDOT, deployed two important systems. One is called the centralized alert system, which helped to track patients who are supposed to be, and then a Savdhan dot, which enables state governments to send messages to targeted areas, to send important messages during any disaster, not only this pandemic, but also during other disasters. You all know about the National Broadband Mission, improvement in the telecom infrastructure, especially BharatNet, and enabling the service providers to infrastructure. All this adds up to achieving the objectives of the National Broadband Mission. You all know that we have permitted the 5G trials. The greatest success that I would credit myself to be a part of, contributed a little bit in the last 6 months. Coordinating with
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Is it okay now?
A little better, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, sorry for that. I was mentioning about the 5G spectrum bands. We have identified spectrum in the sub-gigahertz band, that is from 3.3 to 3.67, most like 370 megahertz. And in the millimeter wave band, right from 24.25 gigahertz, 0.5 gigahertz. And there are still certain issues which require coordination with cable operators who operate right from 3.7 gigahertz. The satellite operators who have their gateway links right from 28 gigahertz. But I'm sure we have laid the foundation in that, and we are sure to utilize these bands in a coordinated way for not only 5G, but also the existing satellite operations. all 3 bands. We work with Shaft pending.
Sorry, sir, we are unable to hear you, sir.
Since how many minutes?
The past 1 minute or so, sir.
1 minute. Okay. Shall I repeat?
Yeah, if you could kindly, sir. Thank you so much.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was telling about the 5G spectrum bands. All the 3 spectrum bands in the sub-gigahertz, millimeter, and the mid bands. If everything goes right in this week, DOT should be able to send a reference to TRAI for determining the auction price. And we have made sufficient background work for finalizing the policy on the ENB bands. And with these policies on the new bands, spectrum bands, and improving the optical fiber infrastructure in the country, I'm sure the telecom infrastructure will definitely be ready to receive new technologies, 5G, and users can get new user experience. I don't think 5G will actually revolutionize the existing telecom systems, but 5G is all based on applications, as you all know, and we are going to see a lot of applications and many use cases which are being developed by many private players in the country. We are going to encourage them, and we are going to test some of them in the 5G trials. And then, of course, the 5G technology must be very useful for the most important applications like teleeducation and telemedicine, besides other many industry-related applications. So thank you very much. I'm sorry the bandwidth here is poor. In fact, after coming from Delhi on Saturday, just 3 days back, I have kept myself in a self-isolation, and the place I am staying has a poor connectivity. So, in fact, I am latched on to the Wi-Fi network of my home, which is adjacent to this flat. So that's how the connectivity is poor. I am sorry for that. I hope I am able to convey the message to all of you, and thank you very much for inviting me on this special day, World Telecom Day. It also happens to be my birthday. I keep claiming to my friends that I am born for telecom. So I think I have contributed quite a bit for the telecom infrastructure, telecom in the country. And I am actually retiring. I have already retired with a lot of professional satisfaction. That is thanks to all the well-wishers, to my parents, to my colleagues, to my teammates, to my seniors, and all the well-wishers like you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you very much, sir, for having joined us today, in spite of the fact that you are sitting in isolation and in quarantine almost, separately from your family. And maybe on behalf of everybody on the call here, wish you many, many happy returns of the day, sir. Thank you so much. It is fitting that today's celebration should end with a message from the Secretary General of the ITU, the premier world body in the forefront of the drive to expand the digital communications capabilities to every corner of the planet. Mr. Harlan Zhao, Secretary General, ITU, is an ICT engineer with over 4 decades of rich experience and has served in a variety of senior management positions at the ITU, including as Deputy Secretary General, Director of ITU's Telecommunications Standardization Bureau, and Senior Counselor with the TSB. A graduate from Nanjing University of the Post and Telecommunications. He holds an MSc in Telematics from the University of Essex in UK. May we please play the video?
By information and communication technologies, our societies have undergone a digital transformation that gave birth to the digital economy and the information society. The information society has emerged as one of the main lines of defense against the COVID-19. There have been many successful stories which have shown a spotlight both on the vital importance of ICTs and the deep digital inequalities between and within countries. In this decisive year, ITU will use World Telecommunication and Information Society Day to unite the world in pursuit of digital transformation in every area of business and all parts of life. It will be an opportunity to strengthen national strategies on ICT development, implement smart policies and effective measures to encourage investments in ICTs and digital skills, and upgrade our services with new technologies ranging from AI to 5G that are central to the digital economy. This moment in history calls for cooperation and partnerships. I'm calling on our members and other stakeholders to continue our efforts to harness the power of ICTs to advance the WTISD action lines, ITU's Connected 2030 agenda, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the theme, Connecting the Unconnected to Achieve Sustainable Development of the ITU World Telecommunication Development Conference 2021, so that the accelerating digital transformation we are witnessing leaves no one behind, no one offline. We want to hear about your success stories, but also about your challenges and lessons learned. Share them with ITU now, and we will give them the place they deserve during the 17th May celebration of World Telecommunication and Information Society Day 2021, under the theme of accelerating digital transformation in challenging times. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and be strong.
And now, as we bring the events of the evening to a close, I would request my colleague, Mr. Devashish Bhattacharya, the Senior DDG with Broadband India Forum, to offer a vote of thanks. Over to you, Dev.
Thank you, Rajat. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings to all on the occasion of the World Telecom and Information Society Day. For those of us, all of us who are in the telecom fraternity, it's a great honor and a great joy to celebrate this day, which we have been celebrating since 1869, which is the first time when this day was marked as the World Telecom Day, and then subsequently evolved to that of World Telecom and Information Society Day. As we have learned from all the learned speakers so far, the information society is now gradually transforming itself to a knowledge-based society. The infrastructure and digital communication services, and digital communication applications. As we all know, connectivity is important, but at the same time, it is equally important to recognize the fact that applications and services that run on the connectivity infrastructure or the digital infrastructure is equally important. And that is what the pull as well as the push of the entire digital connectivity sector is what makes this as a holistic view. And it is this holistic ecosystem that we are here as in Broadband India Forum here to promote, that the holistic ecosystem works in a very smooth manner, and therefore broadband is made available to each and every citizen of the country. And when we say broadband, it should be reliable, ubiquitous broadband to each and every citizen of the country, be it in the urban, be it in the rural, be it in any sector. With these words, I would like to now express my gratitude on behalf of the entire Broadband India Forum, as well as propose a vote of thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Harlan Zhao, Secretary General ITU, to our special guest of honor, who's actually the chief guest, literally Mr. K. Ramchand, former DG Telecom and member technology, Department of Telecom. Also to Mr. Mats Granrid, the Secretary General of GSMA, and also to Madam Nivruti Rai from Intel, Mr. Shakya, DDG Satellite from Department of Telecommunications, and last but not the least to Professor Rekha Jain, who made the presentation and also whose report on the economic value of unlicensed spectrum was released today, the report for which was released today. And also to all our members of the Broadband India Forum, starting with our president, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, our Director General, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, and all our colleagues in the Directorate who have worked incessantly over the last few weeks to make this event happen and make it successful. Thank you very much. Thank you all, and good evening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and stay blessed. These are difficult times. I hope everybody stays well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies, of course.
Thanks.